Welcome everybody to the Jonny and Josh podcast add-on special, and it really is special. What an absolute pleasure to welcome to the show football legend Asmir Begovic. Asmir, thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me on the show, Jonny. A legend is a very bit of a strong word, but I'll take it.
Buddy, you played for Chelsea. In my eyes, that makes you a legend regardless. So let's talk, let's just rewind right back to the beginning of the story. I noticed that your dad was a goalie, so I'm assuming that's where the love of goalkeeping comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my dad was a professional goalkeeper back in the former Yugoslavia. My grandfather was also involved in the game as a goalkeeper, not quite at the level my dad was, but my dad played at a professional level, and then obviously I came around, and for me it was just a natural thing to do. You know, I was literally wearing gloves and trying to play in goals ever since I was born, and that's all I ever wanted to do, and follow my dad's footsteps and be a professional goalkeeper. And thankfully it worked out from there.
And there was never any issue of you saying, actually, Dad, I want to play up front. I want to be the goal scorer. I want to be the glory boy. It was always the gloves for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was never even a discussion, to be honest. Not that it was ever forced on me. It's just that's all I ever did and wanted to do. And it was never really more talked about what was the backup plan kind of thing. So, yeah, if I chose to do something else, I'm sure my parents would have been supportive, but we never got to that.
And football was the winner as a result. And obviously life was difficult for you guys in former Yugoslavia. I believe you moved to Germany when you were, what, 4?
4, yeah. So I was, I was born in '87, and then soon after that, the conflict started in the former Yugoslavia, and obviously that forced some very difficult decisions. And one of those was for my parents to basically pack up all our things and get out of the country. So we then thankfully were taken in by Germany. We were able to settle there and start making a life for ourselves, which was really good. We had some really good years there. We spent 6 years there, and then we moved on to Canada at the age of 10. So, it was definitely a pretty lively and eventful start, but that's all part of the experiences I look back on now.
And explains why your English is so fantastic. Do you speak German as well?
Yeah, I speak German. Got that in the locker as well, which is good. So, but yeah, I started speaking English at a very early age. So it's been good.
It probably explains why, obviously we met a number of years ago at a charity event and hit it off straight away. And I was hugely impressed and somewhat shocked that here was a Premier League footballer who was not only just a wonderful guy, but also a highly intelligent individual. And that's not always the norm, but we won't go there. But let's talk about Canada then. Canada, Germany. I mean, this must have had a massive impact on your footballing caliber. And I'm right in saying that you represented Canada as well at one stage.
I did, yeah. So, going back, I moved to Canada when I was 10. Started playing, obviously, organized football in Germany at the age of, 5 years of age. And like I said, that's all I ever wanted to do. So for me, it was always a nice outlet. Whether we lived in Germany or Canada, I was always able to play football and socialize with other kids and make friends. And that was always a really nice thing to have. But, as things started to get a little bit more serious and I was going through the ranks and making a little bit of noise, then things started happening, and I started representing Canada at under 15 level, and played all the way through to under 21s, under 23s even. So it was a really good experience, but I was never capped. So what that meant was that it always left the door open for Bosnia to come in. It was the country I was born in, and I was always able to represent them if they chose to call me up. And once they did, I had to make a decision whether to continue with Canada or move over to Bosnia and switch my allegiances. So, that's what I did. It was a very much a family decision as well as a football decision, because I thought at the time it was the highest level of football I could play was with Bosnia. Lots better games, and the team was in a better state. And then, of course, being able to represent my family, who were mostly in Bosnia, was a big factor for me.
Obviously, that's the international scene, but then on the sort of club level, you made your presence known in English football when you moved to, is it right, Portsmouth? And that was what you were playing under 18s back in 2005. How did that all come about?
Yeah. So, going back with the national team stuff a little bit, at 14, 15, things started to move a little bit. I was picked for the national teams, all the regional teams in Canada, and had a few agents of people sniffing around and calling me to to try and represent me and then bring me over to Europe and bring me over to a higher level. And, once I chose the one person I wanted to work with, a couple of trials were set up in England for me. One was Portsmouth, and within a couple of days of showing up, I was 16 years old. They offered me a contract, and I did my academy apprenticeship there, and then moved into the professional ranks at the age of 18 in 2005, as you mentioned.
And Portsmouth, I mean, they bounced you around a bit. I mean, you were on loan spells with Macclesfield, Yeovil Town, not once but twice, Ipswich. What was that like as an experience, when the sort of sense that you're with a club but they don't seem to want you?
Yeah, well, it's tricky, right? Because the biggest step is when you're a young player to be able to make a first team, and obviously Portsmouth at the time were a Premier League team, so expectations are really high, and they don't give too many young players a chance. And the only way you can keep developing and keep getting experience and getting better is to obviously go and play games at a good level, and that's what all those loan spells were all about. And then you go to one, and then you get injured, it gets cut short. You go another, and then you get recalled because of an injury to somebody else. So I wish there was a couple more consistent loan moves for sure, where I could have played an extended period of time, and maybe things would have happened a little bit quicker. But that was my journey. That's part of most young players' journey. You have to go elsewhere and get that experience, and then try and prove that you're ready for the first team at your parent club. And that's obviously what I did eventually at Portsmouth.
And obviously the big move was to Stoke City, and that presumably that was the fulfilment of your dreams. You were now a full-blown starting Premier League goalkeeper. I mean, how was that experience? I mean, was that everything you hoped it would be? Yeah,
I mean, everything happened very quickly. I made that breakthrough into the Portsmouth first team in 2009. I started playing a little bit towards the back end of that previous season, 08, 09. And then in 2009, I was able to get that opportunity in the Portsmouth first team, which allowed me to show off my skills and abilities. And at the time, Portsmouth were in financial danger as well, and difficulties, and had to sell off their assets. And January comes around, and Stoke obviously showed interest and wanted to buy me and paid what it took to get me up there. And as you said, it was a huge step for my career, moving on to a really, really good club and onto a few really successful years as well.
Manager at Stoke at the time, was it Tony Pulis? Am I right in saying?
Tony Pulis, yeah.
You had an interesting relationship with him. I mean, I know you had a couple of fallings out, but he also described you as, in his mind, possibly the best goalkeeper in the world.
Well, I think we had a really, really great relationship. I owe a lot to him. Obviously, he brought me to Stoke and showed that confidence and ability and in me to play, and was able to put a young goalkeeper in, which not many people do. So he had that confidence in me right away, which was amazing. I mean, listen, we've had a couple of disagreements as most players and managers and people do. And these days, everything is so well documented, but that's just being in a professional environment. And,
sure,
people get their signals crossed sometimes, but ultimately, he was fantastic for me. We still keep in touch today. And, I have massive amount of respect for him.
You moved, and obviously this is particularly exciting for me, you moved from Stoke to Chelsea. And, personally at the time, I thought you were our best goalie, so it used to miss me something royal that you kept playing number 2. Do you look back on that with regret, the decision to move to Chelsea, or not?
No, one of the better decisions I made for sure. I was at Stoke, so ultimately being at Stoke 5.5 years, and the last couple of years was always chatter about moving on and people wanting to take me from Stoke and push my career on. And I felt like I achieved everything at Stoke. I did a lot in 5.5 years. I think the team did a lot, and but ultimately I always wanted to challenge myself against the best and against the people at the highest level of the game. And
sure,
at that time, when the Premier League champions Chelsea and Jose Mourinho come calling to come and compete with Thibaut Courtois and win some more trophies, then for me that was the biggest challenge, and that's where I wanted to go and wanted to be. And thankfully I had a really good couple of years there. Won the Premier League with a bit of luck. We could have won another trophy. Lost in the FA Cup final, which was a bit of a bummer. And
tell me about it.
But that's the way it goes. But really, to be able to win that Premier League and winning trophies is what it's all about. And had a good couple of years there. Maybe I left a little bit early, but circumstances, dictate themselves sometimes. But I had a really good couple of years, and will always, hold Chelsea in a really nice place in my heart.
Fantastic. I mean, you've had an amazing career when you consider, you're still going strong. You're now at Bournemouth, who you went on loan with in your youth. So it's almost like the completion of a circle.
Yeah, no, oh my God, I was on loan 13 years ago, I think now. So I was on loan 13 years ago. Obviously joined the club here again 3 years ago. And yeah, it's been a journey, as you said, for a long time. And still here. I've got a couple of years after my contract, and still planning to play on for as long as I possibly can.
And post-career, do you think you'll stay here in Britain?
I think so. If you're asking me now, I think it's very difficult to say that, because you don't know when that's going to be, when that time's going to come, where your opportunities post-football will lie and what will come up. But, I can definitely say I feel really comfortable here in the UK. I've been here now 17 odd years. My kids were born here. Met my wife here. So, yeah, we're very comfortable here, and really enjoy living where we do.
Well, Asmir, I know from personal experience that you're also actively involved in a lot of charity work outside of football. You've got your own foundation. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so the Asmir Begovic Foundation, we launched that about 7 years ago, which was aimed at building sports facilities for kids in Bosnia and here in the UK. I think sports is a great way to reach a lot of people, present opportunities. I was able to live my dream through football, and all the difficult times I had in my life were, made better by the fact that I was able to play football and achieve my dreams and follow my dreams. So we're going to try and do the same. I think sports facility is great for kids to be active and socialize as well. So get them off the street. So there's many different positives and reasons as to why we do what we do. But it's been going well. Obviously, COVID and everything has slowed down, things for everybody. But, we're looking to a really bright future.
Well, buddy, the obvious segue here is you're building sports facilities through the foundation. Are you going to be building some diamonds? Because it goes without saying, that's what we need in the UK, big guy.
Well, let's do it. If you find a location, let's do it. The more, the better. So, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us nicely and neatly to the whole world of baseball. That's what the podcast is about. And obviously, the first time we met, which, if I remember right, it was about 5 years ago at a function for the Alderhay Hospital, if you remember. Amazing night that was, raising unbelievable sums of money. And we chatted at the bar, and I couldn't believe it. You were a massive baseball fan. Just tell us about how you got into baseball.
Well, I got into baseball. I mean, and obviously living in Canada. I mean, I'm a sports nut. I followed and played every sport when I was younger. From football to basketball to baseball to tennis to table tennis, whatever it was, I was involved in it. So, still now, absolute sports nut, which drives my wife up the wall a lot of times.
We've all been there, buddy. Yeah.
But yeah, living in Canada, listen, baseball was quite big, and with the Blue Jays and the Expos at the time being involved in the MLB, you were getting quite a lot of games. And but my favorite player at the time, Derek Jeter, I liked Alex Rodriguez and those guys, so I ended up being a Yankees fan.
But that's what I was going to ask. You're living in Canada, so presumably you've got to be either a Blue Jay or an Expo before they went under, of course. But you're not. You're a Yankees fan.
No, yeah.
So that was all just about the love of the individual, was it?
Yeah, you would have thought I would have been a Jays fan or an Expos fan, but no, it was about those individuals. Something I liked about those guys. I think they were obviously great players, and that's what drew me to the pinstripes.
Well, I interviewed Derek Jeter at the 2008 All-Star game. I was the last question at the press junket that they have. And I asked him a question which upset him so much, he completely lost the plot. His veins were popping out of his neck, and he walked off in a huff.
What did you say to him?
It was a little controversial, admittedly. I said to him in my best Prince Charles voice, Asmir, trying to be as English as possible, "Hello, Derek, my name's Jonny Gould. I present Channel 5 Baseball in the UK. A great pleasure to meet you." I said, just one very quick question. In the UK, if you're not a Yankees fan, the Yankees are referred to as the evil empire. I just wondered if you understood why that was. At which point he said, "Are you calling us evil?" And that was it. He was gone. And I stood there thinking, I hope the camera's running, because this is great TV, but I've just annoyed one of the greatest baseball players of the modern era, who, for all accounts, is a lovely, lovely human being. So I didn't feel very proud of myself, if I'm honest with you.
Hey, you live and learn. But at least you got to meet Derek Jeter, so that was pretty
Absolutely, absolutely. Did you get across? Have you been to the old Yankee Stadium or the new one?
cool. Yeah, no, I never went to the old one. I've been to the new one numerous times now. I love New York as a city in general, so I try and get
Yeah.
over there, as often as I can. And of course, anytime you're in town, you try and catch a Yankees game, and it's always a pleasure when I go there, and absolutely have a blast every time.
And your thoughts on what's happening this season? Because, I mean, everybody preseason say they're odds-on, hot favourites, definitely making the World Series. It's them and the Dodgers. And yet, if I'd been speaking to you a couple of weeks back, they were on the verge of going sub-500. They had such a bad run.
Well, you've been asking me for 2-3 weeks to come on, and I've been deliberately waiting for the Yankees to turn it around a little bit.
So I wouldn't be taking the mic, obviously.
Yeah, no, otherwise it would have been a really different conversation. But no, listen, I think overall when you look at it, the Yankees roster is stacked all over. It's World Series or bust, but that's generally the Yankees sort of expectation. And now the guys are starting to become healthier, and the lineup is looking what everyone expected it to look like. And if you can have Garrett Cole leading that rotation, then of course it gives you a chance every year. So
absolutely,
hopefully this momentum is coming at the right time and takes them into the playoffs, and hopefully with a really deep playoff run.
What's your thoughts about all the changes in the COVID season, this abbreviated season, particularly things like the universal DH and the sort of 7-inning restriction for double headers, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, if you're going to experiment with the game, this is the year to do it, because, everyone's thinking on their feet, and you have to make quick decisions and try and be as proactive as possible. And now there's a couple things I like. I don't mind the universal DH. I really don't think, it's fair on pitchers like it is in football, goalkeepers taking penalties. That's not what we get paid to do. But I don't like pitchers hitting. So I think the DH is a really good thing. I think actually extra innings, the runner in second, I think that's positive. As much as I love baseball, but watching games 17, 18 innings is just a bit too much at times. So there's a couple things I like, and I think that modernizes the game. But at the same time, Jonny, also what drives me a little bit up the wall is people trying to change the game too much. Baseball it's been a great game for so many years. It's not about saying you either love it or hate it, but it's a great game, and if people, more people get into it, the better, of course. But there's a couple things I like, and I think there's a couple things that could really stick going forward. But I wouldn't make all these drastic changes that everyone's talking about, and we still need to try and keep the game as whole as we can.
Well, you're going to find some big friends amongst the show. Josh and Dave and Eric will love to hear what you've got to say. Yeah, you need change, but you also need to respect the traditions of the sport. And that's obviously a key part of why we guys all love baseball. Do you play fantasy baseball?
Not this year. I have usually gotten involved, but this year I thought it was going to be so difficult to keep up with everything and all these changes and COVID ILs and everything else. So I haven't this year, but how's your team doing?
Well, very kind of you to ask, but I'm actually top of the table, buddy. I've been in this league for 15 years and I've never won it, but I've got, 10 days to go, and it's squeaky bum time.
Well, it's funny. I don't know if maybe my emails were broken, but I never got an invite, so maybe I would have been involved if, other people reached out to me.
It's very interesting to say that, because we're actually doing a fantasy baseball podcast add-on to the Jonny and Josh show with James Holden, who seriously is the greatest fantasy baseball player I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And he's like our resident expert. And he wants next season, for us to do next season, hopefully a normal season, to actually have a league that we invite our listeners to join. And if you would be our superstar guest that everybody could look to try and beat, that would just be awesome.
That could very well be in the cards, I have to say.
Fantastic. Well, my people will speak with your people. So how has COVID, I mean, obviously, I've actually been really impressed with the way MLB's dealt with the COVID problem, especially with the Marlins going down quite seriously, the Cards losing all those games. We're going to have an uneven schedule almost inevitably because of it. But I have to say, I think they've been very proactive and dynamic in the way they've dealt with it. How's your experience as a professional footballer? You've just come back from being on loan at, is it AC Milan?
Yeah. No, I have to say, listen, I have to say general sport, I think, has done a great job. Some leagues are a little bit quicker than others, but I think everyone's put an amazing product on. I mean, the NFL has just come back as well, and the NBA is doing a good thing. And I think the MLB has done as good of a job as they possibly could have. I mean, you're going to have speed bumps along the way. It's about adapting. 2020 is the year of adapting and being accessible to change and being able to kind of think on your feet a little bit. So it's definitely wasn't going to be without its hiccups, that's for sure. And early on, there certainly were. But I think now it's great. It's just great to have baseball on TV and these guys playing. And we're looking forward to the playoffs. So I guess it's going to be like bubble playoffs, which is going to be a lot of fun, I think, as well. And it's going to be, a well-deserved champion, whoever gets it, because of dealing with all of these different sets of circumstances is not easy. So, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the next few weeks play out.
I know you're doing your own podcast. I've been watching Season of Sports. Is that still happening?
Hey, it certainly is. We had a really good summer with a lot of episodes. Just taking a little bit of a break at the moment because of the season kicking off and my time being so limited with all these games coming thick and fast. So I'm definitely going to try and get a lot more episodes out during this season once things settle down a little bit. But yeah, maybe I'm going to have to get you on my podcast now.
Oh, mate. Well, we'll definitely give your podcast a reference on the show. So we'll drive the 43 people that are listening to us your way in return for the multi-millions that are no doubt listening to your own good show. Just to wrap things up, Asmir, I know you're a very busy man, and I'm so grateful for you taking time to speak with us. What about the post-season? What's your thoughts? Any predictions? Who do you think's going all the way?
Well, I had, I know it sounds maybe a bit of a boring prediction, but I had the Yankees-Dodgers World Series. Yeah. So I'll stick with that, even though the Dodgers are a little bit, I think, ahead of schedule here. Or ahead of the Yankees, certainly. So I'll stick with that. But listen, the White Sox are making some noise.
Can't agree more. Absolutely, yep. And in the National League, any thoughts of a potential outsider?
Yeah, well, listen, I think the Padres have given it a good go. They've certainly been active in the deadline and made a few moves. I think the Cubs are looking okay. Javi Baez was alive and well last night. So interesting to see what happens there. But I think the Dodgers they're looking a pretty safe pick at this moment in time to get to the World Series. But the Yankees, I think, are going to have a little bit of a tougher road.
So you, like me, do you get up in the morning, the first thing you do is just go and see what happened last night?
Yeah, absolutely. So I watched what happened last night. I check all my Yankee reports, see how many home runs we hit the night before. And then, check out the rest of the scores, listen to a bit of podcasts, get some information, and try and keep on top of this as much as I can.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And the thought of taking you on at Fantasy Baseball, that would be an absolute joy. Asmir, thank you so much for giving up your time. We're so grateful to you, all of us on the Jonny and Josh show. And, buddy, very best of luck with the rest of the season.
Thank you so much, Jonny. Appreciate you having me on, and good luck with everything.
Cheers, buddy. Take good care.